And how are you going to govern if you win and Lula loses?
That's unlikely, right? Man, it's just that when I think of Flavio Bolsonaro as president, it's like, wow, man.
No, but I still don't get what people talk about even now.
It's really strange to imagine. Or someone of his caliber leading a country as important as Brazil. It's very hard to imagine. I think he's worse than his father. In several ways.
Look.
He's more like that, man. He's really into that whole thing. Flavio is really into the business. He really gets involved, you know? Didn't you see Bolsonaro show up with the mansion where Flavio lives, which was bought for $6, but how much is it worth?
But it's actually double that.
The properties he bought in cash, how does that work? The whole chocolate shop thing, the cash coming into that chocolate shop again, right? They stopped the investigations. His father changed the superintendent. The Supreme Court held up the case. So it was all just swept under the rug, right? But that's just how it is, right? He's really close to Vocaro's crowd and the centrist crowd. Man, for the guy to talk to Vocaro like that, do you think a progressive candidacy can survive after a recording like that? No. The guy isn't in any position to run for anything. Nothing, not even for building manager.
Yeah, that's what worries me, you know? I see that people, man.
Send 130 there.
People don't care.
The people who vote for Flavio, not only our alliance is forever. Damn, what is this? Man, then you go to the guy's house, the guy with an ankle monitor. What were you doing there? End the conversation. Man, that's it.
Valdemar said something else, right?
Valdemar said it was to collect.
He went to collect. End the conversation by collecting the difference. Yeah, collect the difference.
Look at what we're talking about. Are we talking about this guy presiding over Brazil?
The people who support Flavio today in Brazil, they don't really care about corruption. Actually, I see that it's much more anti-PT sentiment than anything else.
I think there are two types. There's the more fundamentalist type who has an authoritarian kind of fascist-like view of the historical process. There are some very authoritarian people on Flavio's side like that who have no commitment at all to social coexistence or basic civility, which I think is over 20%. And there's the anti-PT sentiment that would rather risk everything on an adventure like this. But anyway, the Brazilian bourgeoisie has a hard time seeing the need for a ruling class. That's why, in general, what do they do in Brazil, Rodrigo? They look for a proxy. What's a proxy? It's not someone who has their own ideas. It's someone who wants to become president to impose the program of the ruling classes, which basically has two fundamental items. Selling public assets and cutting social rights. And if you do that, you'll have the entire bourgeoisie on your side. And just by presenting yourself that way, you can run for president.
You'll have money and everything you need.
You'll have everything. So they keep trying to figure out who is the guy willing to do this. Is it Tarcísio? Is it Flavio? Is it Zan? Who is it? Is it Renan? Who's gonna hammer low-income people? That's who they're going to choose?
Look, Peregrino Encantador sent 100 reais here and asked, what about the phenomenon of big cities becoming unlivable? Example, São Paulo, Madrid, Barcelona, etc. People can't live well on minimum and average wages. In Spain, there's a project to revive forgotten territories. Empty Spain. What would work here in Brazil? You know that one of the things I did at the Ministry of Education was to decentralize the federal education network. I personally, during my term as Minister of Education, inaugurated 126 university campuses of federal universities and 214 campuses of federal institutes. Add 214 to 126. Obviously, one city got both, so there is some overlap. But more than 300 medium-sized cities benefited from the Federal Institute. I was in Avaré the other day. Last Friday, I was in Avaré. The talk there was about how much the Federal Institute, the presence of the Federal Institute, changed the face of the city. We will finish the year with 57 federal institutes. When I took over the Ministry of Education, there were 2. We will finish with 57. Actually, it was 2.5. It was the capital, Cubatão, and there was a small extension campus in Sertãozinho. Today, there are 42 federal institutes in the state of São Paulo, and we will deliver 15 more by the end of the year. That will be 57. What happens when you bring an institute? There are 1,200 to 2,000 students who will benefit, okay? It's 1,200, okay? But it's an ecosystem. You bring the whole ecosystem.
The teachers, a federal institute with 1,200 students, it has to have at least 60 teachers, okay? Almost the same number of administrative technicians, people earning a federal salary. It's not the best in the world, but it's a good salary. To live in the countryside, like the question says, is much easier. Buying a house, buying a plot of land, building, getting your life together. Do you know which cities grew the most in Brazil during this period of moving inland? The medium-sized cities. So whatever we can do to bring what's possible to the medium-sized cities is a really good idea. So industry, public services, all of that. When you bring a courthouse, when you bring, there are several things you can spread throughout the territory. And that's very beneficial for quality of life because, in fact, now a metropolis like São Paulo is unavoidable. You won't be able to dismantle it. São Paulo has swallowed everything. It became the city. It wasn't the most important city in Brazil. Until recently, it wasn't the city. São Paulo has expanded over the last 100-something years, but before the coffee era, Rio was what São Paulo is today.
Yes, Salvador was once the city too.
In Latin America, it was Buenos Aires, and today I would say São Paulo is the main reference in the Southern Hemisphere. It's not just Latin America, it's the Southern Hemisphere. There are few cities in the world like São Paulo, and it has the status of a metropolis. If you go to China, there are 10, 20 cities the size of São Paulo.
Bigger than São Paulo, right?
Bigger than São Paulo. So it's like New York. It's not going to stop existing. Now we have to try to bring opportunities to regional inland cities. And again, public services belong to them. Education, then regional hospitals bring them. When I was mayor of São Paulo, I built a hospital in Parelheiros, which is the rural area of São Paulo. But it's a great hospital. It even won architectural awards. The Marta CEU Education Center is right next to it. So there's an ecosystem there of education, health. You start decentralizing development.
Do you think that at some point Brazil will be able to integrate these cities with railway transportation?
That's pretty complex because it's all one continuous urban area. So land, right, expropriation for that is crazy. And the distances in Brazil are monumental, right? It's something really, really difficult. Now, if you connect Sorocaba, São José dos Campos, and Campinas to the capital, it's something feasible, a rail line linking those three cities. I used to go to Votuporanga, where I spent my vacations, by train. It took 12 hours to get there, but I would sleep most of the time, I took the train, paid little, and arrived way out in the countryside of São Paulo. Yeah, I'm talking about 570 kilometers from the capital, 560 kilometers from the capital, really far away. But look, you were going at 50, 60 kilometers per hour. You'd get there, sleeping along the way. There was a sleeper car, a dining car. That was no big deal. But all of that was abandoned in a way that was almost criminal because Brazil embraced a highway-centered model, right? It was Lula who geared the railways toward cargo transport. Actually, Sarney started it with the North-South Railway. But President Lula really gave a big push to the railways, right? It's more integrated now, but for cargo. For cargo, it's quite viable.
It's not worth it for Brazil to partner with China and have China bring high-speed rail. The problem is, at least between the big cities, I don't know, Rio.
São Paulo. They thought about making a high-speed train between Rio and São Paulo, but the costs were quite prohibitive. Too many mountains.
On the way, it wouldn't even be worth it.
I didn't look into it much since I was mayor during Dilma's government, but from what I saw, there were many technical difficulties making it feasible. Financially,
The biggest one was environmental.
and the terrain, expropriation, environmental issues, there were several topics. I think in Brazil, the issue is demand, right? How many people? Because that's important too, Does it pay for itself? What would the fare structure be? How much would the fare be? Compare it with the air shuttle. There are a whole series of things that